Newcastle and the Hunter area joined today with other Australians to celebrate Australia Day. One of the highlights in Newcastle was the procession, in which units reflected the growth of Australia since the landing of Captain Phillip. The procession moved from Burwood Street along Hunter and Scott Streets to Parnell Place, led by an army band and a detachment from HMAS Vampire. A much smaller crowd than expected turned out to see it. Prominent also was the party representing Captain Phillip and an escort of red coats. The Nesca float carried the Australia Day Queen, Sylvia Stewart, with other Australia Day Quest finalists in sports cars. The City Council float represented a boatload of sailors from the First Fleet. Overall, while some of the floats and units depicted the Australia Day theme, much of it consisted of marching girls, commercial units and vintage cars. However, the Aborigines who welcomed Captain Phillip were represented by a small group made up as Aborigines, while Ned Kelly, in a strange type of headgear along with two warders, followed behind. Four bands provided the music for the procession, which took about 15 minutes to pass. A bullock team and horse-drawn hay carts as sulkies provided an authentic early Australian touch. The procession reassembled near Parnell Place before the next section of the pageant. At Horseshoe Beach nearby, a new Captain Phillip was rowed ashore to reenact the famous landing in Botany Bay. Aborigines met him, but it was difficult to tell here if they were friendly or not. About 3,000 people watched the reenactment. Captain Phillip was escorted by a full party of officers and sailors as he stepped ashore. Captain Phillip on this occasion was D.M. Johnson, a direct descendant of Lieutenant Johnson of the First Fleet, who was attached to the Marines forming the garrison in Sydney in 1788. He carried on his career to be appointed aide-de-camp to Governor Hunter and later was cashiered on a charge of mutiny. But today there was no worry of the future to worry about, merely a journey into the past. There were bands and a flag-raising ceremony, but very little crowd or enthusiasm for Australia Day in Maitland today. There was polite applause for Girl Guide District Commissioner Miss E. Fry, who spoke to the small gathering, which otherwise stood in silence around the flagpole in Maitland Park. The Australian flag was run up, the scouts, guides and bandsmen saluted. And after prayers led by the Reverend G.A. Nicholson for the Ministers Fraternal, Maitland's quiet ceremony was over. The Charlestown Pipe Band led the Australia Day Parade in Nelson Bay. This year, as at last year's first such parade, many of the floats and the riders on them were dressed for period. Not quite Governor Phillip, but certainly early Australia. It was a long and colourful procession which left Fly Point Oval for its tour through the town. Horses? No one would have thought there were so many horses available, but they turned out today in all their finery. So did the local RSL and the boys of Nelson Bay, marching with their local scalp troop.